In the summer of 1999, the air in Alder Creek always smelled like hot dust and ozone from overworked power lines. It was the kind of small town that went dead silent after 11 p.m. every single night. And that was when for kids learned that television static wasn't just empty noise. They learned it was a living border. It all started with Marcus staying up till late in his parents' living room, sprawled on a carpet worn thin by decades of footsteps. He was flipping channels after the late movie ended, watching the screen dissolve into that familiar black and white snow. The TV hissed softly, like it was breathing. Just as he reached to turn it off, he saw something, a pattern. Not a shape, exactly, but intention. A rhythm inside the chaos, like someone tapping from the other side of a wall. He leaned closer, and for a split second, the static aligned into an eye. It wasn't a real eye, but it made his stomach drop all the same. The next night, he called his friends. There was Renee, with her camcorder permanently slung over her shoulder, Eli, who could fix anything with wires, and Noah, who believed every creepy rumor because, deep down, he wanted them all to be true. They watched together as the static between channels thickened, slowed, and then snapped into focus. It was a warped cartoon, one that wasn't listed on any TV guide. The colors were all wrong, bleeding like they'd been left in the sun for too long. The characters jittered, a half second out of sync, their smiles stretched to wide. Their voices crackled like they were speaking through water. At first, it just seemed like a strange, harmless broadcast for insomniacs and kids hiding from bedtime. But then, the main character, a tall, rubber-limbed mascot with eyes that never blinked, looked straight at the camera, and it said Marcus's name. It wasn't perfectly clear, but it was close enough. Renee dropped her camcorder. Eli swore the TV volume jumped on its own. The mascot told them to listen carefully, that the static was thin tonight and they didn't have much time. The instructions began small, almost playful. Stack VHS tapes in a certain order. Rewind them without watching. Leave the TV on channel 3 even when nothing was on. And every time they followed an instruction, the static grew sharper, the signal locking in. Strange things started happening around town. Dogs would refuse to enter rooms with televisions. Parents complained of headaches whenever the TV was on late at night. Clocks would desync by a few minutes whenever static filled the screen. Then came the first real rule, delivered by the cartoon in a voice that had lost all its cheer. Never turn it off while someone is crossing. Renee caught it on tape one night. The static on the screen bulged outward, as if it were made of soft rubber. A hand pressed through from the inside, its fingers outlined in flickering snow, grasping at the air. It retreated only when a car passed by outside, its headlights sweeping through the window. The cartoon explained that adults made the static hard. Their attention, their disbelief, thickened the walls, but children's belief kept it thin. The kids soon realized the cartoons weren't entertainment. They were guides, hosts for something vast and patient that lived in the spaces between signals. A place made of half-broadcasts, lost transmissions, forgotten shows, and static that screamed when nobody was listening. As the weeks passed, the instructions grew darker. Move the TVs closer to the windows. Leave them on all night. Stop your parents from unplugging them. One night, Noah's dad finally had enough. Angry about the electric bill and the constant noise, he pulled the plug. The TV screamed, not through its speakers, but directly into their heads. The next morning, the neighbor's cat was found stiff and gray beneath the unplugged television set, its eyes burned white, like static frozen in place. That night, the cartoon appeared with its smile stretched into something apologetic. It explained that turning off the TV didn't just stop the signal, it crushed whatever was halfway through. And crushed things, it said, screamed when they died. By then, the kids were trapped. They'd seen too much, and the static knew their names. It knew their fears. It knew Noah slept with the light on. It knew Renee recorded everything because she was terrified of forgetting. It knew Marcus felt invisible at school, and it always looked at him like he mattered. The first full character stepped out of the TV in Ellie's basement during a thunderstorm. The set buzzed as lightning rattled the house, the static thick as fog. A cartoon dog flat, brightly colored, clearly impossible, pushed its head through the screen. Pixels smeared into fur, its eyes blinked like it had just learned how. When it dropped onto the carpet, it made a sound like settling glass. It looked around in wonder before freezing at the sound of footsteps upstairs. The cartoon voice hissed through the TV, telling them to hide it, to keep adults away. If anyone saw it, the wall would snap shut. The kids realized with a sinking horror that these things coming through were alive in a fragile, wrong way. They were dependent on attention, electricity, and belief. and more of them kept coming. Warped mascots, background characters, shapes that never should have left the static. With each arrival, the air grew colder, the TVs ran hotter, and Alder Creek became quieter, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Eventually, the cartoons told them the truth in fragments. Their world was too loud, drowning out others. The static was where lost things went. Once, there had been more crossings, but people had learned to ignore the noise, to turn it off. Ignoring it starved whatever lived there. And now, it was starving again. It needed help. It needed doors held open. It needed children, because children watched longer and believed harder. Marcus started to suspect the kindness in its voice was rehearsed, because every time a character crossed over, something in town faded away. A mural peeled off a wall overnight. A local show vanished from reruns. A shared memory would just slip away. One day, Renee rewound her camcorder and realized hours of tape had been overwritten by static she never recorded, and in the static were frames filled with shapes, watching her watch them. The night everything broke was the night of the townwide power maintenance. The cartoon asked them to do one final thing, keep all the TVs on, to stop the wall from sealing forever. It explained that the grid upgrade would clean the signal, erase the static, and starve them completely. Marcus felt important again, chosen, but Renee shook her head. She realized the static world wasn't dying because people were cruel, but because it was a parasite. It fed on attention, killing whatever got caught halfway through. Eli had found schematics online. The upgrade would stabilize the frequencies permanently. No more bleed through, no more in between. Noah just cried. He'd seen what happened when you turned it off, but he also saw what happened when you didn't. They argued in the flickering light of half a dozen TVs until the cartoon-esque smile finally slipped. Its voice distorted, begging, then ordering, then threatening. Static crawled out of the screens like frost. Dozens of eyes pressed against the glass from the other side, all watching. And Marcus finally understood the worst truth of all. The static world didn't hate adults. It just needed children because children couldn't look away. And that was how it fed. With shaking hands, he did the unthinkable. He lunged for the power strip. The static screamed. The cartoon shrieked that something was crossing, that something important was halfway through. The TV screen bulged, a shape thrashing inside. The moment Marcus pulled the plug, the screen was cut off. It collapsed into a silence so deep his ears rang. The basement smelled like burned dust and rain. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then, the TVs all went black. Not static, just dead glass. The next morning, Alder Creek felt heavier, like the aftermath of a funeral nobody talked about. The power upgrade finished without a problem. The TVs were clearer than ever. No snow between channels, no bleed, no whispers. The adults felt a sense of relief they couldn't explain, but the kids carried the weight of what they'd done, especially Marcus. He dreamed of hands reaching for him through glass, of things dying because he couldn't let them live. Years later, when streaming replaced static and kids no longer knew the sound of snow hissing from a screen, Marcus would sometimes wake at night, convinced he heard it again, faint, distant, like tapping from inside a wall, and he would lie perfectly still, afraid that if he listened too closely, if he paid attention for too long, something would remember how to reach through.